CEO Sedina Tamakloe from US to Ghana following her conviction for financial crimes. Also this hour, patients bear the brunt as ongoing strike by medical personnel at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital enters day 3. Later this afternoon, University Teachers Association of Ghana served notice to commence strike on June 12 over delays in payment of book and research allowances. It's News Central, live on TV3. I'm Kaneshi Amano. The news starts right now. This afternoon we'll begin with some breaking news. Former Chief Executive Officer of the Microfinance and Small Loan Center, Sedina Tamakloe, has finally been extradited to Ghana following her extradition from the United States to serve a 10-year prison sentence imposed on her by the Accra High Court. U.S. District Court in April this year orders the extradition of the former CEO of Maslock, Sedina Tamakloe, who had been convicted and jailed by the Accra High Court in absentia for stealing and causing financial loss to the state. Tamakloe failed to return to Ghana after she was granted permission by the High Court in 2021 to seek medical treatment in the U.S. She arrived at the Accra International Airport on Tuesday, June 9th, aboard United Airlines flight UA996, which we understand a few hours ago after departing from Dallas International Airport in Washington D.C. Authorities are expected to complete the necessary administrative security and medical procedures before transferring her into custody of the Ghana Prison Service, where she will begin serving her 10-year custodial sentence handed down by the Accra High Court. Over the last few minutes, less than an hour ago, we know that the U.S. Embassy here in Ghana has commented on the matter. I want to show you what they have been saying. Start off saying, justice has no borders. The United States has extradited, as we have told you already, Sedina Tamakloe to Ghana following her conviction on 70-plus corruption-related charges, including embezzling more than $6 million equivalent in Ghanaian taxpayer funds. This is our strong U.S.-Ghana law enforcement partnership in action, demonstrating a shared commitment to accountability and the first extradition from the United States to Ghana since 2009. That is the comment we've got from the United States, the U.S. Embassy here in Ghana in the last hour, or maybe even less, since news broke of Sedina's arrival in Ghana to face the consequences of the crimes, she is convicted of. Now, we'll stay on the subject now and speak to constitutional lawyer John Kwame Quayson, who has keenly been following this particular case. Counsel, good afternoon to you. Finally, Sedina is in Ghana to face the consequences of the crime she's been convicted of. This is good, isn't it?
Yeah, good afternoon, my sister. And I like the way you said finally. But anyway, much as it might be in the interest of some Ghanaians, I think this is not the main extradition or deportation Ghanaians are looking at. They really are in anticipation of what transpired or what happened finally with the case of Honorable Kaneshi. But you see, there are two legs to this. in the heat of Kenoforata's Bruaha, then the upsurge of this lady's case also came up. Now, some theorists, some commentators are of the view that this lady is being brought in as sort of conduit in getting Ufurata's case finally dispensed with.
How
now,
so?
My initial reaction will be that I think it's in order. It's victory for our legal dispensation. At least for so many years, we haven't heard of any successful extradition in our country. So whether this is what Ghanaians are looking out for or not, there has been an extradition. Now let's use 1 second just to clarify for the sake of our viewers and listeners. We do have deportation and then we do have the extradition. Mm-hmm. The deportation leg mostly comes when it has to do with breaches of immigration laws and so on and so forth. But this particular one, as you have rightly indicated, is the extradition part, where it mostly involves criminalities of citizens involving one state and then having to find themselves in another country. Ghana, and it doesn't come automatically. We should have some diplomatic arrangement with the state on the other side. Fortunately for us as a country, we have that diplomatic arrangement with the United States of America. We have a extradition treaty with them.
Indeed, so which is why she's here, and the communication so far from U.S. authorities talks about extradition and not deportation. I want us to stay on the subject matter because then she's here now. The question for the Ghanaian people in terms of the legal processes she's likely to follow now, what does the law say? Let me
go right away into it. So the legal processes is that because it's extradition, the U.S. will make the effort, transport her all the way from their country onto our shores here. And when the first point of call is our airport, the immigration at the airport will receive her. They will try and ascertain whether it is his real identity. And then they also find out whether she's in good condition of health. When these two main issues are ascertained with, then the immigration doesn't do things with criminality. They will hand it over to our police system. Then the police will go through whether actually there's a conviction order or sentencing order. Then if that is so, then the authorities will decide whether they should take her to court for the court to pronounce further orders, or as the sentence has already been done with, there isn't any further procedure after sentencing. So she will have to be taken straight to any of our prisons, whether in Sawam or whatever the Ghana Prison Service will agree
I see, Counsel.
So at the moment, this is the first procedure.
So, Counsel, you're telling us that if the Attorney General wanted for absconding justice, further punishment could be prescribed for her?
That is not an automatic one. It's a matter of the court to decide. Then we will have to restart the entire process because legally, when you sentence, the court arms are tied. There's nothing prosecution can do again unless you may want to take steps. And the steps are said that you are not coming to re-litigate over the same matter.
Well, so I guess what I'm asking is there any punishment for absconding justice?
No, it doesn't happen that way automatically. If you want to bring in punishment, then you are going to make a completely different case on that. But as it stays, a conviction has been given, a sentencing has also been passed, so all that remained was for her to serve her sentence. So whether she's been away for 30 years, 50 years or not is immaterial. But the court, you see, before sentencing, also took into consideration the fact that she had already absconded. She wasn't in the country when the sentence was passed. So the court factored in all that. But maybe they may will consider the aspect that whilst the sentence was also pending, she still refused to come back to face justice until the Ghana government took some other steps in bringing her here. In that case, the state may want appeal. The court will have to sit over an appeal that the sentence that you gave her because of ABC. But you see, ordinarily, the court wouldn't entertain anything outside of being outside or absconding. The court would rather deal with the facts and the case put before it. And the matter has been dealt with already.
I see. So essentially, there are so many ways that this could turn out, especially when you tell us that, look, once the court had handed down the prison sentence, counting had begun. The court is blind to the fact that she has not been in jail since, the sentencing in 2024. And so the last 2 years, as far as the court is concerned, unless, the Attorney General returns to court, the court sees it as she was serving her sentence. So she has 8 more years to go.
So. The status quo must remain. But the challenge, the difficulty we are having here is that usually in our part of the country, apart from the legal side, our leaders, authorities are letting us know that everything, every issue, especially when it's a high-profile case involving a public official, then we should look at it from the spectacle of politics. Do you get it? So the political leg is the aspect that some feel that is cascading something that the government of the day is trying to employ, so that they will bring her in, hurriedly go and apply for appeal. Then before we realize she's already being given bail, she doesn't have to be inside there. And then she will enjoy all the period. And then in between, there will be an appeal for her, and then she goes scot-free.
Well, we do not, Counsel, we do not know yet if that is indeed a statement. No, hang on.
I'm preempting you because you and I are in the country.
So what I'm saying is we can't even preempt that way. We can't preempt that way. But here's what I can ask you to do. If Sedina Tamakloe were to go back to the course, can she successfully appeal the sentencing after absconding for 2 years?
Yes, she can also do that. And that's why I'm saying that in our part of the world, after you and I are done with the legal aspect, we shouldn't also go blind. We should also face the realities. Let the viewers and the listeners know that this is the position of the law. But there's also the aspect that everything will be reduced into Ghana politics. And then at the end of the day, the law will become useless. So that ordinarily, Sedina herself can also go on an appeal. Are you getting it? And then the court will look into it, whether her sentence should be reduced or be made to go scot-free. It's a matter of the court to look into that aspect also. But it is either the lady or the state prosecution to go on an appeal. As it is now, the matter has rightly gone before the court. It's been dealt with. And what is pending is her sentence. So both parties will have to decide what they want to do next. And then the law will take its normal course. But as it is now, it is a prison sentence.
Counsel, I hear you. All I was saying is that I do not have reason to conjecture at this point that the judiciary or the executive could influence the fate of Sedina at this point, apart from what we know her to have come into the country to do, which is to face the rest of her jail term. But here's something I want you to talk about. Why do you think that her coming to Ghana is giving people hope that perhaps the former finance minister may also be on his way, perhaps anytime soon, to the country?
Yeah, it has always been the desire. That's why in my preamble statement I did indicate it has always been the desire for many or majority of the citizens to see Kenneth Oyata back home, whether he did anything wrong or he didn't do anything wrong. The fact is that they want him to also to come and face justice. I think it gets to a time that the citizens feel some political leaders should be brought to justice or account for their stewardship whilst in office. It can't be business as usual, that because your government is in power, can't do whatever you want. At the end of the day, go scot-free. And that is really the desire of most Ghanaians. And they hope that anytime soon, Kenofurata should also come. At least it has arisen, the sentiment is come to Qatar, the dirty waters again, and then the public's attention is going to be on Kenofurata again. The U.S. government is also going to be made aware of the fact that Ken's case is also pending, and that they will do Ghana good by bringing him also back to Ghana to face justice.
Counsel, I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. John Kwame Kwesi is a constitutional lawyer. We've just been looking at that breaking news in the last hour of this day. That's the former Maslow CEO who's been convicted of financial crimes, supposed to serve a 10-year jail term, has been extradited from the U.S. to Ghana. She has arrived in the country. What we expect to happen is that processes will now follow for her to serve that jail sentence. But we've been looking at this in the context of the law, and which is why we brought in the constitutional lawyer, John Kwesi, on this matter. We'll stay on this as it evolves. We'll bring you more updates here on News Central. In the meantime, public universities across Ghana could be heading toward another industrial showdown as the University Teachers Association of Ghana threatened to withdraw their services by June 12 if government fails to address two key demands. Now, what are those? The association says it will embark on a nationwide strike if authorities do not release the dollar exchange rate required to process this year's book and research allowance. Benefits lecturers say is critical to supporting their teaching, research, and publication work. Now, UTAG is also demanding that the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission concludes negotiations and sign a memorandum of understanding on the conditions of service for university lecturers by the same deadline. Now, the latest ultimatum follows years of tension between the association and government over delays in the payment of book and research allowance and prolonged negotiations on conditions of service. Dr. Samuel K. Zegla is National Secretary of UTAG. He's joining us for a bit more on this story. Doc, look at us. We're back here on the same topic of book and research allowance. Why is this surfacing again when government has talked about the release of exchange rates and the likes to teachers, I think sometime last year?
All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, we are back here again. Every year by March of the year, the Ministry of Finance releases the dollar rate for the computation of book and research allowance for senior members of public universities. We have been following this for several weeks. We have written to our sector minister who informed us that he took the matter up with the finance ministry. I must mention that just a few seconds before we came on air, we have seen a letter from the finance ministry just a few seconds ago releasing the dollar rate for the payment of book and research allowance just a while ago. But the second issue that we have, it has to do with our conditions of service. Our conditions of service expired 31st December of last year. We were supposed to renegotiate the conditions of service, but we have been informed that there's a government position that they are constituting the Independent Emoluments Commission. So as a result of that, all negotiations were put on hold. In view of that, we actually had an interim arrangement with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. We negotiated an interim arrangement pending the operationalization of the Independent Emolument Commission. We have finalized the arrangement and we are left to signing of the document to pave way for implementation. It has been several weeks. We have followed up with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission several times. Even yesterday, we were in their office and there's no way out. It appears to us that the Ministry of Finance is not giving the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission the go-ahead to sign the agreement with us for implementation to commence. And so we have given them up to Friday. If we did not hear from the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, we will convene on Monday the national leadership and then we will advise ourselves.
So are you telling us that this communication you received from the Finance Ministry regarding the book and research allowance and this exchange rates component was quiet on your condition of service?
The conditions of service expired at 1st December 2025, and we have negotiated an interim arrangement pending the operationalization of the Independent Emoluments Commission before we go into...
Right, so what I'm asking is there was no communication on that, because you tell us that you received communication in the last few minutes since we started talking.
That is in respect of the exchange rate for book and research allowance.
I see. But here's the thing. You had two problems. One of them has been solved. Sounds to me like that's some good effort on the part of the government, and students shouldn't bear the brunt of that when you decide to go on strike. You say Friday?
These are two different issues. We've been pursuing the exchange rate for book and research allowance since February of this year, and we are in June. We just received it a few minutes ago, less than 10 minutes ago, I must say. That's when we were preparing to speak with you. That's when we received it. The issue of condition of service has been pending since January, and we are told that we cannot negotiate because we are constituting the Independent Emolument Commission. In view of that, we have negotiated an interim arrangement pending the Independent Emolument Commission, and we are yet to sign the document for implementation to start, and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is dragging its feet. We have been to their offices several times. We have spoken with the chief executive. He kept telling us that he's waiting on instructions from the Ministry of Finance. So it appears the Ministry of Finance is holding us back, and that is what we're looking at.
So again, what I hear you say is, despite the payment of the exchange rate component of your book and research allowance that you tell us you received less than 10 minutes ago, unless the conditions of service issue is also dealt with, your ultimatum to government stands.
Secondly.
I see. Now, let's move away from that. Perhaps the executive will find time to respond to it. But away from that, how can we ensure that we do not get back to this point of exchange rates, book and research allowance not being paid? How can we put a stop to that?
It all rests with the government. We are doing our work as employees of the government. Nobody calls us in the morning to go to work. We go to work. We do what we are expected to do. And government has an obligation to compensate us for some of these services. So we do not need to be having back and forth and be coming on air to speak about this before government releases rates or pays us what is due us. If the government is committed to this, it will be done without any noise about it.
I see. Let's talk about the conditions of service. What's new?
There's nothing new except that the government is in the process of putting together an independent emolument commission, for which reason our negotiations for conditions of service have stalled. And since they are not yet done, that will take us maybe to the end of the year. We have had some agreement, some discussion on an interim arrangement pending the operationalization of the Independent Emolument Commission. We don't know what that will look at. We are still going through the process. But in the interim, we have some agreement with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and we are waiting for that agreement to be signed so that it will be implemented.
I see, Doc. When I asked what's new was in relation to you mentioned negotiations over and over again. Perhaps if it's okay to share for public consumption, you could tell us what the teachers are bringing to that table of negotiations.
Well, per the rules of negotiation, we cannot share details, except to say that we have had some interim arrangements that we are yet to sign for implementation.
Very well. We'll end it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Dr. Samuel K. Zegla is National Secretary of UTAG. They have given government a June 12 ultimatum, after which they say that they will decide as an association to declare strike over their conditions of service. Now, you recall that at the start of the story, the coverage of the story, we had talked about how there were two outstanding issues. Dr. Zegla has just told us that As this story is evolving, there's been some development, that development being government releasing funds for the book and research allowance. So one component of their problem is being solved. However, UTAG says it is not enough for them to call off that threat to strike. Let's turn attention to the health sector, because healthcare delivery at the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi has been disrupted following a strike by doctors and nurses protesting the suspension of the hospital's chief executive officer, Dr. Pakwesi Beju. The industrial action has left hundreds of patients stranded. Patients seeking medical attention at the outpatient department of the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital have been forced to wait for hours, with many unable to receive treatment due to the ongoing strike by the healthcare professionals. For more on this story is Ibrahim Abubakar, who's our Ashanti region correspondent. Ibrahim, you've been with the patients at the accident emergency, which is beautifully in your background. What else can you tell us about what's happening there?
Well, Tamini, I can tell you that currently new patients are not being attended to. Relatives of those who are already on admission also continue to express frustration over the issue, even though I've seen that some critical emergency services have been handled by some doctors and nurses around. The disruption I would say has significantly affected healthcare delivery at this facility. And the impact is particularly concerning, given that we know that Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital serves not only residents in Ashanti region, but also patients from 10 other regions across the country. So for now, vulnerable patients are bearing the brunt of the industrial actions, and authorities are yet to indicate when normal services will resume as efforts to resolve the ongoing impasse. I do know that there is currently some meeting ongoing by the doctors. We don't know whether the outcome will come with some positive or relief information for patients. But currently, clearly the strike is taking a heavy toll on some of these patients, because people have come all the way from other regions, some as far as Mansunkra and the likes, only to be told that the doctors and nurses are not working. So the frustration is there, and they are just calling on governments to ensure that they engage with the doctors and the nurses to bring them back to their post, so that healthcare services will continue without any interruption. Let's listen to some of the patients I earlier spoke to.
It would appear we can bring that video clip to our viewers at this time. Well, my understanding is we can. So let's take a listen. Well, I'll come back to you and then you share with us what alternatives there exist for these patients who need critical care.
Amansia South. Bibedura ubi enia. Bibi bia yeka. Nti kwan be fa so e be hwe no mpa ye na me bose. Ya me bedum ya ubetimi aboa ya me aye. The mesem no anu. Me nko ba bia ha na da bia me ba. Edimetra na kura me da ne. Kopim bra wo mbe bansa na mama ya hwe me. Ene na nka ese ye hwe me. Ene sun ba no bia ni aye 9 June na nka ye hwe me enso so ene e ba yo bia ni ami minim se wo mu kosa ka me ma.
E ba ye no. Ye hu nurse mpo ne hu doctors. O mo dan nyina ya tutum. E bia no no ma wo fa wo hu obia. Ya duro nso ta ma so se doctors hwe ye no mo ma ye duro. Mbeduru ha kra che ma boto kra san kra ma me pressure foforo. Bisa me hwe ye kra ye ho odin kakra yi kra na ye mfi ye na o hwe wo ma agency ni ade a. Aban ne hu ye mobo na de wo mo ne doctors ni ntem bia o ntimi so wo mfuru ho no mo na fa sundue mra no ntimi me hwe ye nso so ayare fo na ye bre.
Ibrahim, I'm going to come back to you shortly, but at this time I'll bring in Chairman of the Health Committee in Parliament himself, a medical doctor, Dr. Ket Nawani. Doc, I appreciate your time with us this afternoon, but I'll go straight to the point. What can or should the committee or has the committee done to, break this impasse and resolve the solution, the problem, excuse me? Well, perhaps we'll return to Ibrahim when we have Ket over the phone. We will go back to that conversation. But Ibrahim, tell us, what are the alternatives for these patients who need critical care?
Well, so for now, others are moving to closer facilities like Suntreso, the Kumasi South Hospital, which serves as the regional hospital, and also Tapo. But for others, they have no alternative. Like you heard the earlier man said, he came all the way from Mansunkra, which is about 3 hours drive from Kumasi to that place. And the road network is terrible. And he says he's been receiving his treatment at Konfanochi. So for him, it's like they came with their mat and they are ready to sleep here until the doctors and nurses resume their services.
Very well.
So you go to the OPD, you realize some have their mat and other things and say they will have to sleep. Others say they also have to move to other health facilities.
Very well, Ibrahim. We'll end it here, but not with this story. I'll try again with Dr. Ket Nawani, who's the chairman of Parliament's Health Committee. Doc, again, I'll go straight to the point. How do we resolve this problem?
That was great idea in my actually the idea that we should use the board to solve the problem. There's no way.
Hello? Hello?
Well, Doc, can you hear me?
Hello?
Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Well, so I'm asking what the solution to this impasse is as far as the committee is concerned.
Let me say good afternoon to the viewers of TV3 and say that it's an unfortunate situation that we found ourselves. And as we speak now, what we want the doctors to do is to call off the strike. Indeed, we are advocating that things should normalize. In other words, they should go back to work, and then the reinstatement of their CEO will continue to advocate and ensure that it also takes place as soon as it's practicable. And to bring the two sides to dialogue once they call off the strike.
I see, Doc. All that is nice and good, but we know that over the last 3 days, there has been communication to the doctors and the health workers to return to post. They haven't. How does the committee plan to get them to go to work?
This morning, the CEO of the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital has issued a statement requesting that they should go back to work. In other words, even if they want to have a course where he is subjected to the wisdom of the minister and the board, his colleagues should go back to work. And exactly that is what we are telling the doctors. Go back to work. We'll continue with the advocacy. We'll continue to work hard to ensure that that decision is probably mitigated or reversed, and will normalize the situation at the hospital.
Doc, I hear you, but as you very well know, that statement from the CEO, who is now on suspension, came yesterday. Today is day 3 of the strike. The doctors obviously are not as post as our correspondent has told us, as he reported live from the critical care unit of the Konfanoti Teaching Hospital, which tells all of us that words are no longer enough. And so if the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health says that we will continue to plead with them, we will talk to them, it does not look like it will work. So what then if the doctors don't go back to work? Well, I'm told that we've lost that connection to Dr. Kurt Nawani, who's the chairman of the Health Committee of Parliament. But another committee member, Professor Titus Bayu, is describing the recent incident at the Konfanoti Teaching Hospital as regrettable and largely the result of a communication breakdown. While defending the clinical decision taken by the doctors, he says the manner in which it was communicated created misunderstanding and breached institutional procedure. Let's take a listen to him on New Day.
What has happened is a very regrettable, unfortunate incident. And I say it's regrettable because you can see an unintended consequence of the strike action. When I get there, I'll explain it. But I'll summarize everything that has happened as one of a communication gap that led to lack of understanding, which he has alluded to. And this lack of understanding led to either side of the divide interpreting the intentions and motives of the other one wrongly. I'm making this with several years of experience as a union leader myself and knowing what they feel, and as somebody who has worked in the emergency setting, but also having the additional understanding as someone who sits on the board of the Ministry of Health and also chairs a teaching hospital board like this, like Kolebu Teaching Hospital. And what do I mean by communication gap? If you look at it and the misunderstanding that has resulted from it, the doctors took what I would call a good clinical decision. The management, all those who were gathered there, took a good clinical decision. And he has explained everything that went into that decision. And at some point, if you permit me, I'll give you excerpts of minutes of the meeting they held. And they did ensure that there was continuity of care and no patient was harmed. So clinically, you will say they didn't err. Because technically, you don't want to admit people when you know you cannot care for them. You don't want to admit people and then they will die because there's no oxygen port and all of that. And when that happens, when it amounts to giving the general public false hope that if you come here, you can get help.
Professor Titus Bayu is Lambushie MP. He's also a member of Parliament's Health Committee. You're here on News Central Live on TV3. I'm Kaneshi Amano. We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, good news for users of the Accra-Tema Motorway.
In a world full of noise, clarity matters. Stories shape us, ideas challenge us. An honest dialogue moves us forward. This is a space for depth, where voices are heard and perspectives matter. Conversations with Dr. Abnanya Kwasmini, coming soon on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
around us is changing, not slowly, not quietly. In the north, the rains that once arrived on time don't come anymore. In the middle belt, rivers and forests disappearing overnight. Along the coast, the sea is swallowing land that families have called home for generations. Rising temperatures, failed harvests, homes lost to tides. This is not a warning about tomorrow. This is the world right now. TV3 and the German embassy in Ghana. The conversation on climate security implications in Ghana. The Climate Talks 2026. 5 cities, 5 conversations, 1 urgent call to action. Tamale, Bolgatanga, Kumasi, Keta, Accra. Starting this June 2026. The climate talks are coming, and this time, the people most affected by Ghana's climate security crisis will be at the center of it all. Because the time for Ghana to act is now. In a world full of noise, clarity matters. Stories shape us, ideas challenge us. An honest dialogue moves us forward. This is a space for depth, where voices are heard and perspectives matter. Conversations with Dr. Abnanya Kwasmeni, coming soon on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
Around us is changing, not slowly, not quietly. In the north, the rains that once arrived on time don't come anymore. In the middle belt, rivers and forests disappearing overnight. Along the coast, the sea is swallowing land that families have called home for generations. Rising temperatures, failed harvests, homes lost to tides. This is not a warning about tomorrow. This is the world right now. TV3 and the German embassy in Ghana. The conversation on climate security implications in Ghana. The Climate Talks 2026. 5 cities.
Welcome back to News Central. We'll now turn attention to commuting because traffic flow on the Accra-Tema Motorway has been restored after emergency crews cleared a fuel tanker involved in a fatal crash near the motorway underpass. The collision between a fuel tanker and a tipper truck sparked fire, leaving 1 person dead and 3 others seriously injured. The incident caused major overnight disruptions, with firefighters and police working through the night to contain the blaze, secure the area and manage traffic. Earlier this morning, heavy congestion built up as motorists faced long delays and were diverted through alternative routes. By noon today, recovery teams have removed the tanker, cleared the debris and completed safety checks, allowing sections of the motorway to reopen. Investigations into the cause of the crash are ongoing, while authorities are urging road users to drive cautiously and follow traffic regulations as normal movement resumes. Now in Ghana East, the Municipal Assembly says it is poised to undertake massive demolition work on buildings sited on waterways. The assurance was given when the Ghana East Municipal Chief Executive and MP for Dom Kwabenya took a tour of some communities affected by floods.
Days of torrential rains have disrupted activities and livelihoods in many communities within the Ghana East Municipal Assembly. Accompanied by a team of inspectors from NADMO, the MCE and MP for the area visited 3 out of 10 electoral areas to take inventory of the damages. Communities including Pantine, Abokobi, Agbogba, Nyamikrum, Temban and surrounding areas, which historically never experienced flooding, are now suffering severe floods after heavy rainfall. Residents demanded action from the assembly.
This is the main gutter, but the water doesn't pass through this gutter again. Now it passes through houses and it's spoiling things. Now people are homeless here, okay, especially me. It has entered our house. We don't even have a place to sleep.
And no matter things when they say no baby I'm a tikwa me ya dia no. Me nya baby ntena. Enti me sra mo sa mo ba hwe kwa am ba fa so am ba boa no. They say masama ya mobo.
The team inspected dredging being undertaken in the Obedu and Dakobi rivers after developers filled the river. The MC Edmund Agbo said they've identified buildings sited on waters which will be pulled down.
In every rain there's flooding, but what we experienced recently is unthinkable. So we want to be proactive, and that is why we want to take inventory of the causes and then mark them appropriately, get back to the drawing table, and then at least all those structures that are on waterways will be pulled down.
At Oda Shomwan, the team identified that developers have constructed close to the buffers, exposing the main bridge to danger. MP for Dom Kwabenya, Elikmila Kurugu, blamed the situation on indiscipline.
You see videos of people building in waterways. You see videos of buildings right in the middle of drainage where there's supposed to be a free flow. Until we prioritize resilient measures or systems, we'll still be where we are.
Meanwhile, Accra Mayor Michael Kwakbo Alote has defended the delay in repairing the Kaneshi pedestrian footbridge after missing an earlier completion deadline. The mayor says the full extent of the damage only became apparent after work was about commencing, adding that the ongoing garage project is expected to affect the entire structure during rehabilitation process. The bridge was closed to pedestrian traffic in April, with authorities initially projecting that repairs would be completed in a month. Here's what the mayor had to say.
Kaneshi footbridge has been there for over a decade. The place is rusted. We all saw danger coming. We want to wait till something happens before we come in. I'm not that type of person. I like to take action. I went in there to make sure we change the bridge. But we are doing the garage project. And the garage project is going to pass through where the bridge is. So if I go in and do the bridge, garage will still clear the bridge from there. So I'm a part of garage. We went to Koforidua last, I was in Koforidua when the Accra issue happened, I drove back down. So we are on it working to make sure Gary could do the work fast for me to continue the bridge.
Were you not privy to the garage project before you went to close it down?
I knew the garage project was coming on, but I thought the garage project was getting there earlier before we commenced work. But I realized the garage project delayed a bit, so we cannot work without their project because I was thinking they will pass before I do my project. I don't want to lose any life. With him, like in my palm, like say, mayor cost this for this to happen. I've seen the danger coming. Why, as a leader, I'll wait for something to happen before I go in? It's wrong. I beg them. They should just be patient. We'll fix the bridge for everybody to still pass there. But for now, they should watch the policemen and the AMA people. When they stop them, they stop. When it's time for them to pass, then they pass.
For months now, commuters in Accra and Kumasi have endured long queues and overcrowded bus stops due to inadequate numbers of commercial vehicles to transport them. Many heaved a sigh of relief with the arrival and commissioning of 100 buses, Isuzu buses, so to speak. However, Metro Mass Transit says that 100 buses are intended to restore transport services in underserved and rural communities across the country and not for intra-city commuting. Here's a report by Evelyn Timmer.
The Deputy Managing Director of Metro Mass Transit says the company's fleet has dwindled significantly over the years, dropping from about 1,000 buses at its inception in 2003 to just 115 buses currently in operation. As a result, the company's nationwide coverage has been severely affected, with services reduced from 385 routes to only 84 routes due to the shortage of buses. According to Haruna Ampauredu, the 300 buses promised by government, of which 100 have already arrived and commissioned, are intended primarily for residents of remote and underserved communities where access to public transportation is either limited or non-existent.
The buses came in immediately when the president assumed office. The complaints, the challenges that we receive from traditional authorities, policymakers, MPs, living in the hinterlands, and that made the president, being a responsible and listening president, to step in quickly to get those buses so he'll be able to route across the 300 operational route points of Metro Mass. Those buses that has come are for inter-city operational buses.
The clarification may come as a disappointment to commuters in Accra and other major urban centers who had hoped the new buses would ease transportation challenges in the cities. However, the Deputy Managing Director says plans are underway to introduce a separate fleet of high-capacity buses dedicated to urban transportation before the end of the year.
Hope you remember the anti-day bus, yes. Those days, the yellow ones, and that is what the president is keen on. At a go, one bus can pick no less than 80-90 people. So those buses, assuming you have about 20 of them in Accra, that should be enough to deal with Accra situation. It is in the light of that, if you see our head office, we have currently put together a complete EV charging station. It is in expectation of the new buses that are coming. We now have our own EV charging station here. I believe that the intra-city buses, which will be deployed not too far from now, wouldn't be anything less than 100.
In the meantime, he says, Metro Mass Transit has introduced an interim measure by redirecting some buses arriving in Accra from regional routes to provide temporary services within the capital during peak hours before continuing to their original destinations. For now, many commuters may have to wait a little longer for relief, with the company appealing to Ghanaians to be patient as it works to balance the pressing transport demands of urban centers with the equally urgent mobility needs of people living in the hinterlands. Evelyn Tinkma, TV3 News, Accra.
Now, President John Dramani Mahama has secured a major procurement arrangement with Belarus for the supply of 1,840 pieces of agric equipment, addressing the first ever Belarus-Ghana Business Forum in Minsk. The president described the deal as a practical example of deepening economic ties between the two nations and called on the private sectors of both countries to move beyond diplomatic cordiality and forge lasting commercial partnerships.
Agriculture represents perhaps the greatest immediate opportunity for collaboration between our two countries. Belarus has earned a global reputation for excellence in production of agricultural machinery and equipment, fertilizer production, and agro-industrial systems. Ghana is currently undertaking one of the most ambitious agricultural modernization programs in its history. Through our Feed Ghana program, we're investing in mechanization, irrigation, improved seeds, livestock development, and agro-processing. We're establishing farmers' service centers across the country to provide machinery, technical support, and modern farming services to Ghana's farmers. Indeed, the ongoing procurement of agricultural machinery from Belarus for these centers is a practical example of how our partnership is already yielding tangible results. As I speak today, Ghana has placed an order for 1,840 pieces of agricultural equipment from Belarus.
Away from that, a recent privately organized award scheme for ministers and CEOs of state institutions has got a lot of tongues wagging. Many are questioning the relevance of such events and its impact on the performance of a targeted audience. There's more in the following editorial piece. Well, unfortunately, we cannot bring you that story at this time. We will do so in subsequent broadcasts. But it's been a full hour of News Central already. Thank you so much for your company. I am Kaneshi Amano. Bye-bye.